같이 식당에 앉아요. 왜?
화물열차는 문을 실은 채 기차역에 그대로 멈췄습니다. 맥없이 무너져 내린 축사 지붕. 부재역에 소를 잃었고 이젠 외양간마저 고립된 마을
다들 어디 갔었어?
쌓인 눈을 퍼보지만
안녕. Okay, so today we're doing part 2 of A White Christmas because I gotta finish this up so that I can move on from it. But I did work hard on like scripting this and like anyway, y'all don't care. So yeah, part 2 of A White Christmas. So the first part I refer to as the letter because there's kind of like two mysteries going on in the show. They do intertwine, it's just, you know, one comes first and then the other one. So this part I'll refer to as the experiment. Warning, viewer discretion is advised as the show we're going to discuss is a psychological thriller with themes and imagery of violence, death, self-harm, bullying, and isolation. This subject matter can be a sensitive topic, so please proceed with caution. Okay, so a little bit of a recap of part 1. So in part 1, we are set at the elite boarding school nestled in the 𝘾𝙤𝙤𝙩𝙚 Mountains, 𝘾𝙤𝙤𝙣𝙩. Now, there are 7 students and they all stay behind for the Christmas break because they receive this very eerie letter from an anonymous sender. And in the letter it says that at the end of the Christmas break, which is 8 days long, that someone will be dead. So they decide that they need to go on the hunt and find who sent these letters to hopefully stop a tragedy from happening. And throughout their hunt, they find out that this letter is not just a letter, it's kind of giving 13 reasons why, because there is a line in the letter for each of them that states a sin that they committed against this person. As they decipher the letter as to which sin belongs to who, they get closer and closer to finding out who wrote this letter. Not who sent it, but who wrote it. And they find out that it was a student who is currently deceased already named Jinsu. And he passed away the previous year from unaliving himself. And now they're wondering, well, if he didn't send it, then who did? They come to the conclusion that it must be someone who's his friend, and they believe that this friend is Kang. Now, Kang pleads his case and says that that is not true and that he was never friends with Jinsu and that he didn't even like Jinsu in the first place. But they don't really believe him because he's acting kind of sketchy. After confronting Kang about his alleged friendship with Jinsu, all hell kind of breaks loose because communications are completely cut off in the school. There's no Wi-Fi anymore, like no access to the internet, the phones are down, and they are in the middle of the mountains, so this is not good. On top of that, their teacher has disappeared. They don't know where he is. And on top of that, the stranger slash psychiatrist Johan that they took in after he got into a car accident has an extremely high fever, is like on the brink of death, basically. So a lot is happening in a very short amount of time. And then the tragedy hits when Sunny finds Sem's body, and it is clear that he has been murdered. And they don't know which one of them did it. So now the stakes are higher because it's no longer just about some letter with sins in it. Now there's a murderer among them. So let's pick up right where we left off. So they find Sem's body at the base of the fountain in the courtyard, covered in snow. And it's clear to them that he has been murdered. and they find the weapon beside his body, or what they believe to be the weapon, and it's a knife. Of course, they regroup and they kind of discuss, and they're like, okay, obviously one of us is the killer. So who is it? To them, the most obvious answer would be Kang, because he's been acting sketchy. They already believe that he is the sender of the letters, because they believe that he is Jinsu's friend, even though he already pled his case saying that that is not true. But since they found their teacher's body, they're thinking maybe it is true. And, you know, the person who lost their friend wants to punish us, but this is a bit extreme, isn't it? It's murder. So now that they're all very shaken up by this, they devise a plan. So they're all very shaken up by Sem's murder, and this is where Jae steps in. And he devises that they should go on the hunt for Kang, because Kang was the only one who didn't show up to the courtyard, so they don't know where he is. And Jae's like, we need to find him. We need to get him before he gets us. Now Jae is like the last person who should be leading the charge in this, because he's crazy. He has violent tendencies, and he just is not thinking straight, and he already has it out for Kang. We already know that they don't like each other, so this is not helping the situation. But even more alarming than Jae coming up with this idea is that Moon, who is supposed to be kind of like a leader and level-headed, is going along with this. So the boys trudge through the halls of the school with weapons in hand. They have bats and broomstick handles, and they are looking for Kang. And it's scary, because Jae especially looks like he's taking a lot of joy in it. While Moon, Jae, and Angel are hunting down Kang, Chi and Q are in the science lab, and they're trying to make some sort of like flare type thing that they can put on the roof so that it can signal to the helicopters that have been flying over the school lately that they need help. And while they're putting this thing together, Chi takes it upon himself to ask Q why he sent the letters. So apparently the way Chi figured it out is because within the letter there is a mistake. Where the body is supposed to be found, you can't see from the location that is stated in the letter or something like that, because it's a new addition. Like there's like a new addition to the school in that area or whatever. And because Q is new to the school, he wouldn't know that that is a new addition. So Q tells Chi that after Jinsu passed, he took his spot at the school. And so he took his old room as well, and he found Jinsu's diary. And after reading this diary, Q felt that he could understand Jinsu's pain, and he wanted the others to know how they contributed to it. Chi, being an ice prince and rather robotic, does not understand where Q is coming from when he's saying that he relates to Jinsu. He just doesn't really get it. But Q is now worried. He's like, are you going to tell the others? And Chi says he's not going to, because he's like, if he does, they're just going to hunt you down like they're hunting down Kang right now. Since Chi doesn't seem to really agree with what they're doing, understandably so, they're running around the school with baseball bats ready to, you know, beat up some kid that they think did something and have no actual proof that he did anything. So speaking of Kang is trying to escape the boys chasing him. And so he ends up running into the science room, you know, sees Chi and Q in there. They seem a little, more so Q, seems a little shaken up when he comes into the room, even though he has no reason to really believe that because the whole reason that the other boys believe that he killed Sem is because they think that he sent the letters. But Q is the one who sent the letters, and he knows that he sent the letters, so I don't know why he's scared of Kang. He really doesn't have a reason to be. But anyway, so Kang runs into the room, and he's like, what is going on? I'm getting hunted down with baseball bats. Like, what is happening here? He's like, I know I took photos of Sunny and like you guys found my secret photo book of her and like it's kind of weird, but is it really warranting to be hunted down like an animal? Like, what is happening? And so Chi and Q tell him about Sem because again, he had no idea. He was the only one who wasn't there because he couldn't hear the whistle because he took off his cochlear. And so they tell him that Sem has been murdered, and of course he's shocked and is like, wait, they think I did it? So Chi proposes that Kang stay in the jail cell, basically, at the school where Ray was staying, right? Where Ray got locked up by Sem. And she's like, if you stay in there at least, like, they can't get you. So, like, at least in there you'll be safe until they come back to their senses. Meanwhile, Dr. Johan's fever is only getting worse, and Sunny has been taking care of him and trying to get his fever to go down, but it's not working. And so the boys kind of all have to take drastic measures, and they plunge him into an ice bath, which thankfully brings his fever down. In the morning, when things calm down and everybody has returned to their senses a little bit, Sunny and Moon go outside back to where Sem's body is, and something doesn't add up. Why would the killer leave the murder weapon right next to the victim? Sunny's point is basically that it makes no sense to remove the weapon from the victim's body just to leave it beside them. If you were going to leave it, you would leave it in the victim. So Moon goes over to Sem's body and looks at the fatal wound. And he notices that it's not a wound made by a knife. Then we go to Q, who is in the infirmary. He's going through the security footage from that night. He sees that Sem uses the same move that he used on Ray when he caught Ray spying on him. That resulted in Ray having a big bruise on his back. And he notices that Johan has the bruise on his shoulder as well, but he claims it's from when he fell on the ice. Jay ends up going into the infirmary. He looks under the mattress that Johan has been sleeping on for the past couple of days as he's had a high fever, and there are bloody clothes shoved under the mattress. Now Chi's on the roof, and he's setting up the flare signals that he made last night, hoping that a helicopter will pass over and see them. But he is abruptly stopped right before he can light the flares by a gun being pointed at him. And while that's happening on the roof, Jay, Q, Sunny, and Moon all reconvene in the hallway, divulging the conclusion that they've all come to. And just as they're gonna go find the others, coming up the stairs is Chi, being held at gunpoint by Johan. Johan is the one who killed their teacher. Now we get to hear a bit about the good doctor's backstory. On Christmas Eve, Dr. Johan had given up. He was exhausted. I mean, being a serial killer would be exhausting. He just didn't feel excited about it anymore. He didn't feel that sense of responsibility. As he got into a taxi, he was stopped by two detectives who arrest him. And honestly, he was relieved, because if he wasn't caught that day, he would have killed again. In fact, he would have killed that taxi driver. But he's come to terms with the fact that he won't be able to complete his mission, and he's okay with that. As the detectives drive him to the station, they get into an accident. The car is totaled, and it kills both the detectives, but not Johan. Johan takes one of the guns off the detective and walks into the forest. This walk, he thinks it'll be his last. And as he's kneeling in the snow, looking out into the vast mountains, shadowed by the night, thinking that this is going to be his last moment, suddenly, not too far in the distance, lights turn on. He takes it as a sign of destiny, and he follows the lights, and they lead him right to the gates of 𝘾𝙤𝙣𝙩𝙯 High School, where they welcome him with open arms. Now let the games begin. So Dr. Johann has revealed his true nature to the students, and he tells them that he is the serial killer that has been on the loose, which we do hear about on the radio, like when they're having breakfast that first day. And so he gathers all the students and sits them all down in the common room at gunpoint. Q takes it upon himself to ask, he's like, why did you kill our teacher? And he says that the reason he did it is because, police put out a picture of him on the news. So it was only a matter of time before Sam would have seen that, figured it out, called the police, it would have been a whole thing. And so he decided to just get rid of him. More importantly, he wants to play a game. The game being, find the lost sheep. Where is Angel? Now, he says that they are going to find Angel and bring him back to the common room with the rest of them, because he's the only one missing. So he splits them into 3 groups: Chi and Q, Jae and Kang, and Moon and Sunny. One of them will stay, and the other one will go search. And if they're not back by 10 o'clock, he will kill whoever's left. Obviously, Jae is very scared considering his partner is Kang, and Kang is the one who is set to go and search, and so he's worried that Kang is not going to come back for him, as he should be, because he literally hunted him down yesterday like an animal. So Q, Kang, and Moon all go search. None of them can find Angel. They don't know where he is. So they all return, luckily just in time, and they're like, we don't know where Angel is, okay? We've looked everywhere, don't know where he is, don't kill us. And in that moment, Angel appears. Angel is actually in the same room as them, sitting above them on the windowsill. He's been sitting there the whole time, listening to music in his earbuds. I don't know if he's noticed what's going on down there, but he comes down, and Johann finds this hilarious, truly. He starts laughing like, there he was. Now that the lost sheep has been found, they can go and eat breakfast, where Johann will explain the next game they will be playing. Now, the cafeteria has been set up differently. The tables are in a T shape, where Johann sits at the bottom of the T, and the rest of them sit up here. And then one person always sits right next to Johann, just in case anything goes awry, that person will be ended to get the rest of them back in line. That being said, the game that we'll be playing is who is the sender of the letter? Johann versus the students. Now the rules are simple. If the students find out who sent the letters first, Johann will punish the sender of the letters, and that will be their reward, punishing the person that made them stay behind on their Christmas break. However, if he finds out who the sender of the letters is first, he will punish the person who committed the worst sin. Now, for Johann to find out who the sender of this letter is, he will have one-on-one therapy sessions with them. And from that, he will make a deduction as to who he believes is the sender. Now, after he explains the rules, he asks if anyone has any questions. And of course, our resident smarty pants and ice prince, Chi, raises his hand. Now, Chi is always operating 5 steps ahead of everybody else, it seems like. And of course everybody's scared, but Chi is so robotic and emotionless that he only has one question. A question that could change the dynamic of everything. He asks how many bullets Johann had. Johann is taken back by this. He realizes that Chi is clearly not just the smartest of the bunch, but the most mentally strong. But he plays fair. And he tells them that he has 4 bullets. Obviously, there are 7 of them. And Johann says, worst case scenario, 4 of you will get shot. Now that that has been laid out, let the sessions commence. Johann decides that the first person will be Kang. And he locks the rest of them up in, I think it's the, teacher's quarters or something. And he locks them in there while the sessions take place in the infirmary. While the group is locked up, they start devising a plan. Chi starts devising a plan. And this plan will take place during dinner. But back to Kang. So during Kang's session, Johan observes that he's very chatty. And Johan realizes that it's because Kang doesn't like to sit in the silence. And Johan tells him the reason he is so desperate is because he uses it as camouflage to conceal his disability. Johan saying this to him, he gets Kang to open up pretty quickly. Now, towards the end of their session, his cochlear starts to run out of batteries, so he's slowly starting to not be able to hear. Now the group make their way to the cafeteria, where they are going to enact their plan. On the way, Moon tries to tell Kang about the plan that they've come up with. But as we know, Kang's cochlear has stopped working because it's out of batteries, so he can't hear. They go to the cafeteria and sit in their T formation, where Kang is sitting right next to Johan. They serve the food, and their plan starts. Back in the lounge, they set up one of those automatic air fresheners that go off periodically in front of a lighter so that when it sprays, it will set off the fire alarm. Now the fire alarm goes off while they're eating dinner, and this startles Johan, obviously, because he doesn't know what's going on. And that gives the opportunity for the boys to kind of jump in and try and get the gun from Johan. The gun falls onto the floor, it's a struggle, they're yelling at Kang to get it. Kang doesn't even know what's going on because he can't hear. It's chaos, and unfortunately their plan fails. He's like, fate must be on my side. It must want me to complete my mission. So he lines them up, and he asks them, tell me whose plan this was. And they're all quiet and reluctant to say, until he points the gun at the weakest link in the group, Jay. So Johan decides that she needs to be punished for this, but not just any punishment. He believes that it's only fair to have a life for a life. Moon argues, saying we didn't take your life, we had no intention of killing you, we just wanted the gun from you so that you wouldn't threaten us with it anymore. But Johan doesn't see it that way. So Johan brings the others back to the teacher's lounge. Immediately, Jay blames Kang for all of this, but Moon steps in as Jay is trying to literally beat Kang to death. He steps in and he says, you can't hear, can you? And he says, why didn't you say anything? Again, as if this is his fault or something. Anyway, Johan takes Chi into the auditorium, and Chi stands strong. He doesn't waver, he doesn't plead or beg for his life. He simply just stares back at Johan coldly. He seems unfazed, he doesn't seem scared. He seems like he's not going to let Johan win. But back in the teacher's lounge, the rest of them are sitting there in silence, scared, listening to each other breathe, until they hear it. And it echoes through the school halls, and they know that she is dead. Now you may be wondering, where has Ray been this whole time? So after he gave the student file of Jinsu over to the others, he decided before Sem returns that he's gonna go have a day of fun. And so he hikes into the mountains to go skiing by himself. He has a blast the whole day, and then at the end of the day, he starts hiking back to the school, but ends up getting caught in an avalanche. Luckily for him, some mysterious woman who's hiking in the mountains also saves him. And that woman's name is Cherry. Well, that's what we're going to be calling her. And so yeah, she saves him, and then the two of them start hiking back to the school, which takes them a while. Now, by the time they return back to the school, it's nighttime, right? And since Ray has been gone for 2 days or something on this little ski trip of his, he's assuming that Sem is gonna be upset with him and get mad at him, so he's sneaking around the school. And so he sneaks back to his room, checks the security cameras, and he doesn't see anybody. And he finds it really weird, but whatever. you know, because he's checking more so to see if Sem is around. He and Cherry sneak into the cafeteria to eat. And as they're like secretly eating, they're kind of making a little bit of noise, and Johan hears it. So he goes to check it out and they hide, but luckily he doesn't catch them. In the morning, Johan returns to the teacher's lounge and he collects Jay. And he wants Jay to go into Kong's room and get him another battery for his cochlear. Johan thinks that it would be unfair to leave Kong at a disadvantage during this letter game. Now, while Jay is gone, the others are gathered and they're asking Kong questions about what his session was like. They're kind of like writing things on pieces of paper so that Kong can answer. And Kong basically tells them how they didn't talk about the letter at all. He got him to open up, if anything, and it was more like a real therapy session. Upon hearing this, the rest of them decide that it'd probably be a good idea to not reveal to each other who sent the letter, because there's no guarantee that they would all be able to keep such a secret. And we already know Jay is clearly the weakest link of the group, and ultimately is just not trustworthy. So once Jay returns with the battery for the cochlear, they all go to breakfast. So they go to the cafeteria, and as they're cooking, Q notices a bandage stuck on the side of like the metal countertop, and he recognizes it as the same bandage that Ray had on his cheek when he was in the jail cell. And this gives them a shred of hope, because that means Ray is back. And I mean, he has no idea what's going on, obviously, but if they can signal to him somehow what is going on, then maybe they can turn the tables. So Q, you know, silently alerts Moon as to his findings, and Moon decides that he's gonna try and like indent an SOS sign into the bread, because he's thinking that when Ray sneaks down here later to like get food, he'll probably use the bread and hopefully toast it so that you can see the SOS. But after breakfast, they all return to the teacher's lounge, and Jay gets taken for his therapy session. So during Jay's session, he ends up opening up pretty much right away, and he tells Johan that he doesn't like himself as a person, which is sort of evident throughout the show. You can tell that there's some sort of internal conflict. Johan then tells him that he is a weak person. If others knew this about him, they would pity him. And this seems to prompt Jay to do the unthinkable and confess to sending the letters. He says he sent the letters because he was tired of the others acting as if they've never done anything wrong and that they were all so perfect, and he wanted to reveal the truth about them, that they're not perfect and that they do bad things just like he does. And per the rules of the game, Johan asks him who he believes committed the worst sin of them all. Now this question seems to prompt Jay to start having a panic attack, and as he's hyperventilating, there's a loud noise just outside the door, which startles them both. So Johan goes to open the door to see what's happening, and he gets electrocuted as soon as he touches the handle. He gets electrocuted and passes out. Jay is shocked, obviously, because he's like, what the heck is going on? And Jay is shocked when none other than Ray comes walking through the door to save the day. After Jay is released from his handcuffs, he runs back to the lounge to release the others, and they all go to the infirmary and dogpile on top of Ray in joy and gratitude for saving them, while Johan sits in handcuffs at the side of the bed. And after they all get off of Ray, he asks, like, where's Chi? Where's Sem? Are they locked somewhere else, or like what? And they all hang their heads low when they have to tell Ray that Sem and Chi have passed. And, you know, it's a lot for Ray to digest. He just got back after all, and so much has happened. He turns to Johan and he asks him, is Chi really dead? Did you really kill him? To which Johan responds, I'm really no different from you. The media has people believe bad people come from sad backgrounds, an abusive father and a promiscuous mother, but it's not true. There are plenty of bad people who come from normal backgrounds. We all have the potential to become monsters. Suddenly, 𝙘𝙤 runs in the room and interrupts and is introduced to the rest of the gang. And then they go and lock Johan in the jail cell. And then they go and celebrate their win. Because at this point, it's just a waiting game. Either the break will end and someone will come back to the school, or they'll be able to get the communications back up and call for help. Either way, he's locked in the cell and they're safe. Meanwhile, the only one of them who seems to not be able to fully enjoy their win is Jay. Jay can't stop thinking about his session with Johan, and he looks like he feels guilty. Now, Sunny notices how odd he's acting and tells the others, and when she reports this back to them, they immediately start looking for the gun that Ray was the one holding. And Ray's like, I had it with me a second ago, and now it has suddenly disappeared. And we see that Jay has gone down to the basement to visit Johan in the cell. And it seems that Jay has finally snapped. Johan taunts him, saying that he's been waiting for his visit all night. He says that he must feel guilty for betraying his friends like that, to which Jay responds, if betrayal is turning your back on trust, I never betrayed anyone. No one trusted me anyway, don't you agree? Lying, stealing, and soon murder. I'm guilty of it all, but not betrayal. Suddenly the others run into the room and they're wondering what the hell is going on. Like, what are you doing? Johan threatens to tell the others that Jay confessed. He says, aren't you gonna be upset if they know? They'll hate you. Which Jay says that he's used to it. He's used to being hated. And if anything, he does things to make people hate him, because that's how he feels most comfortable. He swings around and points the gun at Johan. The others tell him to calm down. Ray steps in, but suddenly the gun is now being pointed at him. They all freeze in fear. Ray reveals he had removed all the bullets from the gun for everybody's safety, and in that moment, Jay falls to his knees and starts crying. The boys ask Johan what the hell he did to make Jay act this way. What did you say to him? And Johan refuses to tell. He refuses to tell them what they talked about in their session. But he does say that for a price, he'll tell them another secret. They quickly release him from the cuffs. And he says, 𝙘𝙤 is alive. So the group run to what seems to be the broadcasting room, and they find 𝙘𝙤 alive and well. He actually is like in the process of trying to escape through what looks like the vent or like the ceiling or something. The man is unfazed and unbothered. And they all celebrate that he's alive because they thought he was dead for like at least 12 hours. But 𝙘𝙤 being 𝙘𝙤 gets right back to business and goes right back to solving their problems. He asks 𝙘𝙤 if she has a cell phone, and she says that she does, but it's out of batteries. Now, this is 2011, and if you know how phones were in 2011, cell phones, then you know that this is kind of a problem, but not a problem for a science major like 𝙘𝙤. And so the next day, 𝙘𝙤 and Moon hike into the mountains together, looking for cell phone service. However, just as things seem to be looking up, they will soon find that there is another monster in their midst. A monster you could have seen coming from the beginning if you looked really close. When 𝙘𝙤 and Moon are in the mountains calling the police, they realize that the last number that called her phone was the school's number. On Christmas Eve, the night of Johan's car accident, when he arrived at the school and they brought him to the infirmary for treatment, Moon called the police to tell them the situation. After he finished talking to the police, he asked Johan if there was anyone else he wanted to call. Johan gave him a number to call, and that person was 𝙘𝙤. So that leaves the question, who is 𝙘𝙤 to Johan? She is none other than his stalker, which means she is in cahoots with Johan. So Cherry started off as one of Johan's patients, and she was seeing him because she was abused as a child, which kind of has left her this very mindless being. That being said, she became obsessed with Johan because she kind of sees him as her savior, which makes her the perfect person to control. That being said, she frees Johan from the cell and they round up the rest of the students, which consists of Q, Sunny, and Ray. Johan says they should continue their game and pick up right where they left off. And Ray asks why he's even doing all of this, to which he is glad to give him a little bit of a recap of the past few days that he's missed. Johan explains, "A few days ago, they were all talking about me on the radio. This brought up a discussion among the students. Some were critical of my actions, but then Q said something that caught my attention. He asked a question, are monsters born or made? I realized I had been seeking an answer to that question. I was a serial killer, born this way or made this way. So I decided to conduct an experiment with you kids, the most gifted students in the country. If I can provoke you, turn you into a monster, then monsters are made. If my experiment fails, monsters are born. Isn't it fascinating? In the hearts of a few of you, the incubation has begun." Because Johan wants to continue the game where they left off, he tells Q to go and find Jay because they have unfinished business, considering Jay has confessed to sending the letters, which means, per the rules of the game, he still has to name the person who he believes is most sinful, so they can receive punishment. Now the group is shocked when they hear this, because they had all agreed that the only way they would be able to win this game is if they didn't tell each other or Johan who sent the letters. But upon hearing this, Q is especially upset, considering he is the one who sent the letters, and it's been difficult for him to keep the secret from everybody. So Q goes and looks for Jay, and he finds him in the theater room, watching a movie. And he lies, and he tells him that Ray is looking for him, so that they can all discuss what to do when the police arrive. And as they silently walk through the halls to the cafeteria, they take a bit of a detour when Jay says that he has to pee. They go into the bathroom, and while they're in there, something just snaps inside of Q. And he takes a mop handle from the corner of the bathroom and starts chasing Jay through the halls with it. Eventually, Q chases Jay into the self-study room. And as he's looking through all the desks trying to find him, Jay confesses that the reason he said that he was the one who sent the letters is to save his own skin. And in his eyes, they would have done the same thing. I mean, there was no guarantee that they would all be loyal to each other, was there? But Q disagrees, as they all stood strong and have been loyal to each other throughout this whole situation. And for that, he punishes Jay. And they start fighting, and they're beating each other up, and it's not looking good for either of them. While Jay and Q are fighting, back in the cafeteria, Angel is having his own hypnotherapy session with Johan, trying to get to the bottom of the corner monster that haunts him. And as Sunny watches this go down, she finds something eerily familiar. The tapping of his pen on the table. She recognizes it. The day that she tried to take her own life, she realizes that he hypnotized her that day, and it was his suggestion that she go and try and end her life. And he says that he did it so that she would realize that her petty little problems are nothing in the grand scheme of things. Once Q and Jay return to the cafeteria, Johan makes Jay tell everybody who he deems the most sinful. And his answer is shocking. He names Sunny, and his reasoning is pathetic. I hate you with Moon. I hate you even after you broke up with him. I hate that you ridicule me. I want you dead because you pity me. It seems that the monsters are forming in all of them. Jay is a trash person, but I didn't think he would go this far. That being said, Johan holds the gun to Sunny, and just as he's about to pull the trigger, Q steps in and says, "I'm actually the one who sent the letters." And he pulls out Jinsu's diary as proof. And he explains the story of why he did it, which intrigues Johan. And Johan then asks him, "Well, who do you deem the most sinful?" Q says that he will only reveal his answer once everybody is back together, which includes Chi and Moon, who are still out in the mountains. Johan says he'll give them till 7 p.m. to be back, or he'll take things into his own hands. Meanwhile, back in the mountains, Moon wants to get back to the school. After they figured out that Cherry is in cahoots with Johan, he wants to get back as soon as possible to help the others. Chi, however, doesn't see the point in rushing back because they can't do anything anyways. The two are fighting, hitting each other, rolling around on the ground. And then suddenly Moon pushes Chi, which results in him rolling down this hill and breaking his leg. Moon has no choice but to trudge through the snow and try and find some sort of supplies so that he can try and get Chi up from the hill. And in the process, he finds the scene of the car accident that Johan was a part of. He sees the 2 dead detectives, and he also sees one of their guns. Unfortunately, there are no bullets in it. But he does find rope in the trunk, and so he goes back to Chi and throws him the rope so that he can try and pull him up. And as he's pulling up Chi, the rope is scraping his hands and he's in pain. We start to see the psychological effects that Johan is having on all of them. Because Moon starts thinking about all the times that people have told him that he's second best to Chi and how Chi's always ahead of him, and it bothers him. Thus, the rope starts slowly slipping through his fingers, and Chi starts going back down the hill. It takes Moon a second to come back to his senses, and then he pulls Chi up finally. Chi says he didn't think that Moon would come back for him, so they trudge through the snow together with Chi's broken leg all the way back to the school. When Chi and Moon finally return to the school, they go to the window of the teacher's lounge, and Ray helps them out by drawing them a map to how they can get into the school without setting off the security alarms, because that's how Ray was sneaking around the school the whole time without getting caught by Sem. So when they make it back into the school, they devise a little plan, and they know that Chetty is in the cafeteria making dinner for everybody, and so they figure it will be easiest to ambush her when she's alone, and then they have one less problem to deal with. However, things do not go as planned, and they pretty much immediately get caught by Johan. Now, Chi tries to play his cards right, and it's a bit of a standoff with 2 guns in the mix. Now, Johan doesn't know that there's no bullets in the gun that Chi is holding, but he calls his bluff anyway. They are recaptured and reunited with the others, locked in the teacher's lounge. Now, after this standoff where Johan basically put Chetty's life up for grabs when he called Chi's bluff, he wants to ensure that there is still trust between them. So he gives her the loaded gun, and because of her loyalty, he knows that she'll come running at his beck and call if he's in trouble. So he's not worried, but he should be, because he's underestimating the one person who has yet to be recaptured: Kong. So Kong realized before Johan was free that there was something weird going on, and so he decided to pack up and go hide in the auditorium. So he's been there for hours, and he's the only one who hasn't been captured. But now is his time to strike. Knowing that Chi and Moon have been recaptured, he now has the laptop with the CCTV footage. He now has the upper hand. So he devises a plan. Knowing that Cherry is loyal to Johan and will do anything for him, he decides to set up the laptop with old CCTV footage of Johan trapped in the jail cell. And what does she do? She goes running to the cell where Kong is waiting for her. When she goes to the cell and realizes that Johan's not in it, Kong pushes her in, but unfortunately, she rips off his cochlear. 𝘘𝙤 is locked in the cell though, so that's one less threat to deal with. Now as Kong is enacting his plan, the others are coming up with a plan of their own. When Johan goes to get them for dinner, none of them come to the gates, so he has no choice but to go in and find them. He walks through the rooms spouting nonsense threats and making predictions of how this is all going to play out. Until he comes across Q, who is tied up and gagged, and Johan assumes, of course, that his friends have betrayed him, upset that he is the one that sent these letters and put them in this situation in the first place. So he unties him and tells him to make the others come out of hiding, to which he says he doesn't have to because they can all hear him. And he goes on to say that he's been thinking a lot about who was the person who was most involved in Jinsu's death. And he says that Jinsu was the most sinful. Johan is upset with this because this is not an acceptable answer. He can't punish someone who's already dead. So Q instead says that if that's not an acceptable answer, then second to that would be the person who replaced Jinsu, which is him. In that moment, the others pop out of hiding with weapons in hand, ready to ambush and attack Johan. But they see that he has the gun and they freeze up until they hear a gunshot from elsewhere in the school, which lets them know that the gun that he has is not loaded. They chase Johan around, but he manages to just escape with Q in hand, leaving the rest of them locked in the teacher's lounge again. The shot that they hear is actually from 𝘘𝙤 shooting the glass from inside the cell, and it must be bulletproof because it does not break. Now we pick up with the police, who have been non-existent this whole time, and they are back at the station going over the call recordings from Moon and Chi when they finally got through the police when they were trying to find cell service. And they're giving details about the person that is terrorizing them at their school, basically. And they give details like there's a scar on his hand, which isn't a detail that was released about Johan to the public. So they confirm that this is probably him. Even more so when they track the number that the call was made from, and they realize that it is the cell number of one of Johan's old patients, aka 𝘘𝙤, aka his stalker, which is just more confirmation that this is Johan. Now, I don't know why they're so worried about the details, because these kids, these teenagers, are calling the police for help. They're saying that there is someone at their school who is literally terrorizing them and killed their teacher, and you guys are worried about whether it's the right guy that you've been looking for a few days? You are the police. You need to go and help these kids regardless of whether or not it's the person that you've been looking for. Hello? Anyway, so the police finally clear off the roads and make their way up to the school. And just as they're pulling up, they hear gunshot sounds. This is when 𝘘𝙤 shot the glass in the cell. They can hear that from outside. And so they pull up and surround the school and they announce their presence. They're like, "We're here, come out and surrender." So Johan in the broadcasting room announces to them that the gunshot that they heard was a warning shot and that nobody is hurt. However, that will not be the case if they try anything. So they ask what his demands are, to which he says, "I've been holding counseling sessions with the students, and I have found it very intriguing. What I want is to continue these sessions until the very end, and at the last stage, I want to speak to each of their parents. Once I've finished counseling their parents, I will return all 8 of them." The cops are obviously confused and are like, "What?" But they comply nonetheless, since this is a hostage situation. So all the parents are called and informed of the situation, so they all make their way down to the school. Some of the parents look annoyed, others are crying and sobbing, others are fighting and blaming each other. So Angel's parents are the first to show up. His mom is annoyed and brass, whereas his dad seems more cold. So the police inform Johan that Angel's parents have arrived. And they ask, of course, for proof of life of their son, to which Angel says a few words confirming it. But then Johan says that he also needs proof that they are Angel's parents. And so he asks Angel's mom to tell him how she makes pancakes. So of course Angel's mother is confused when she's being asked to give a pancake recipe. But Johan explains that when he was having a therapy session with Angel, Angel brought up a story that warmed his heart. And he said that Angel's happiest memory is his mother making him pancakes. Even though this is the same mother that made up a story about a corner monster which still plagues Angel's memories and mind to this day. So he asks her again, how do you make pancakes? Now the police quickly pull up a web search generic page about how to make pancakes and she just reads off of it. And after a few ingredients, Johan tells her to stop. And he basically says that her lack of parenting is how he knows that she is Angel's mother, and that he will now return Angel. So as they are walking to the front doors of the school, Angel asks how Johan figured out that the story that he told him wasn't about his mother. And Johan says that he found out in that exact moment. Johan then asks him if he's still curious and wants to know the truth behind the corner monster and why his memories are so skewed. To which we get a bit of a flashback. And we see that the woman that is cooking these pancakes seems to be a housekeeper, but apparently this woman kidnapped him, and yet he still thinks of it as a fond memory. He doesn't answer Johan's question and simply walks out the doors, reuniting with his parents. Meanwhile, Cherry breaks out of the cell, but she injures herself really badly in the process. However, she still manages to make it all the way up to the broadcasting room to give Johan back the loaded gun. However, because her injuries are so severe, she ends up passing away. Next to show up are Sunny's parents, along with their driver, and all three of them seem very distraught and worried about Sunny's safety. So, when Johan is informed that they have arrived, he asks Sunny's mom to reveal her greatest sin so that he can prove that she is her mother. Now, her mother was very eager to do anything to get her daughter back until he asked that question. And the police assure the mother that she can just lie and say anything, that no one's going to take what she says seriously. So she starts going on a tangent, saying I've bribed people to get contracts and I've done this and that, very random petty things. Johan stops her and says, no, I need you to tell me the first sin that came to your mind when I asked the question. Sunny cries and sobs, knowing that if this secret gets out, it will ruin her family. And Johan provokes her, asking, who do you think she'll choose, you or herself? And Johan tells her that he will count down from 10 and she needs to reveal the secret or he'll end Sunny's life. And as he counts, her mother just cries and sobs, but she doesn't reveal the sin. Johan says that he will return Sunny, and it seems he just wanted Sunny to understand that her mother will choose herself over Sunny every time. When Sunny is released and reunites with her parents, she's angry, obviously, but she also tells the police that Johan is conducting an experiment on them and trying to turn them into monsters. But the cops persist and they say they have to keep going as long as he keeps his word and returns all the students. Meanwhile, Kong makes his way back to the cafeteria to grab the laptop with the CCTV footage. So he finally realizes what's going on, and he sees that the police are here. So Kong somehow secretly makes it into the broadcasting room and rewires things so that the CCTV footage from inside the broadcasting room can be broadcasted outside on the big screen where the cops can see it. Now, he lets them know that the power is down, and Sunny adds to it saying that there's a secret way that they can get into the school without triggering the alarm system. So the cops get in through the vent system and quietly make their way through the school, while the others who are still locked in the teacher's lounge are trying to take care of Chi, who is going into shock because of his broken leg, while they listen to the torturous sounds that they will also have to endure once their parents show up. So Moon is the next victim when his father shows up. Now, his mother passed away when he was younger, so she's not there. But as soon as his dad shows up, Johan is happy to say that he thinks Moon is an incredible young man. Wonderful even, and he's been a leader among the students here. However, in his professional opinion, Moon's heroic behavior is him yearning for death. And then he says to Moon's father, he must feel guilty that he lived instead of his mother, and now he must grow up in place of her. Is that how you raised him? Now, Moon's father is very disheartened by this, heartbroken. He takes a moment and thinks, before responding, I've never asked you for any favors, but as your father, I ask you not to die. Whatever it takes, stay alive. That is my wish. Suddenly, Jay's parents, specifically his mother, who has been waiting patiently to talk to her son, is getting impatient, and she steals the mic away from Moon's father and yells into it that she wants to see her son, that she can see all the others except her own son. Where is he? And this signals to Johan that he has been compromised and that the cops can see what's happening inside the school. Then everything is so fast, yet so slow. The cops break in and rescue all the kids in the lounge, all except for Moon, who is being taken up to the roof by Johan. And as the cops are racing to get up to the roof to save him, a gunshot goes off. And we see the bodies of Moon and Johan laying on the ground in the snow. Moon opens his eyes, and he's in the hospital, with his dad by his side. All he has is a bump on his head, but he has escaped death. He goes to find the others, who are in Chi's hospital room signing his cast, and they all joke around lightheartedly now that this nightmare has come to an end. Until the cops come in and completely ruin the sweet moment they were having by saying the most audacious thing. It's great to be alive, isn't it? This is crazy because they should have came way sooner to save these kids. Like, way sooner. And the only reason they didn't really was because the roads had some snow on them. I'm like, you guys are detectives. You guys are the police. Get someone to shovel it. Like, what are we doing? They also say it as if they saved these kids. They did not save these kids. These kids saved themselves. The cops did literally nothing to save them, like at all. They set up a booth outside the school like, hey, we're here. And then the kids are still locked in there with a crazy man. Like, hello, you guys didn't do anything. And then you let them be tortured essentially by this guy talking to their parents. Like, what a terrible plan. I swear, police is always just useless. Anyway, the cops come in with some shocking news, to say the least, and they tell them that their teacher is alive. Of course, none of them believe them because they're like, we saw his body. What are you talking about? And Moon says that he even confirmed himself that Sem was dead. And they're like, how would it be possible for him to be alive when he was laying out in the courtyard under a pile of snow for like 3 or 4 days? And the cops are confused. They're like, what do you mean in the courtyard? We found him on top of the roof. And Chi, being big-brained, asks them, how did you say Johan died again? Apparently, they had previously said that Johan had ended his life with a gun to the mouth. And they all stand there looking confused. It seems what had happened was Johan, being smart himself, used Sem's body as a decoy so that the cops would think that it was Johan and that they would think that Johan is Sem. Therefore, Johan is not dead at all and he is still on the loose. These cops are so incompetent. I'm confused how that even happened though, because they allegedly know what Johan looks like. So I don't understand how it would be confused. Like, if you thought this teacher was their teacher, Wouldn't you look at his face and be like, oh no, that's the serial killer that we've been looking for? I can't. The incompetence is insane. So all the students reconvene in Qi's room and they discuss. They're wondering like, okay, well, he escaped. Do you think he's just like gonna leave the city or something? And Qi's like, no way. If I was him, I would want to finish my experiment. I would want to see the results of all my hard work. This isn't over yet. So Angel is back at home, his family's house, which is heavily guarded by cops, considering Johan is still on the loose. But the only thing Angel can think about is that memory. Concerned about the truth, he asks his mom why the family maid would kidnap him. She fired her because she didn't like the fact that her son looked at this woman as if she was his mother. It hurt her feelings, and I guess the woman was scorned, so she kidnapped him. Now, as Angel dwells on this, he is informed by one of the maids that he has a phone call from his friend Moon. So he answers the phone, and whoever's on the other end starts counting, all the way to 10. And when he stops, he asks Angel if hide and seek is over yet. This is a reference to the monster in the corner, as sometimes when Angel sees him, he's counting. This finally unlocks the memory. When he was a kid and he was kidnapped, he was playing hide and seek with a boy, the maid's son. The maid had a son of her own, and they were playing together at her apartment as she made them pancakes. But the police raid the apartment, and in the commotion, Angel is scared, and he goes to hug who he believes at the moment to be his mother, but she rejects him and hugs her own son instead. And Angel is jealous that she hugs this other boy, her son, instead of him, and feeling scorned, he lies to the police and says that he was kidnapped because he wished that he was that little boy getting love from his mother. The idea that this memory that he tried so hard to repress, resulting in him being haunted by this little boy for his whole life, is too much for him to handle. And as a result, he decides to take his own life. Now back at the hospital, the police inform the other students of Angel's passing. And they're all shocked because it just felt like they were finally getting through this whole traumatic event that they've been going through for the past week. And for some reason, the police tell them how he did it, as if they haven't been through enough trauma for the past couple of days. So apparently Angel painted his face blue, like the corner monster, and used his dad's gun to end his life. He leaves behind a short note that reads, "The egg's about to crack." And they say before he died, he received a call from someone that they all assume is Johan. Now our Ice Prince Qi's is not having any of this police incompetence, and he decides that they have to take things into their own hands. So with the help of Moon, they make a call to the police, pretending to be Johan, saying that he wants to say goodbye to the students. And after they make the call, they throw the phone out the window onto a garbage truck. After the call, the cops are on the move. They track the phone signal and they start following it out of the city, basically leaving the students unattended at the hospital. And since the police presence at the hospital has lightened up, Sunny decides that she's gonna go to the convenience store, to which she tells her mom, and her mom joyfully is like, "I'll go with you." But Sunny's not having it, and she tells her no, that she doesn't want her to come. And Sunny can no longer ignore the elephant in the room. She asks her mother how she could just practically let her die over a secret, basically letting her mother know that she knows the truth, that her mother is having an affair with the driver, which is why back at the school she was so reluctant to tell the secret, because her husband and the driver were both standing right next to her. But still, she was willing to put her own life above her daughter's. After Sunny makes a scene, she ends up going up to the roof of the hospital. When Sunny makes it to the roof, she is met by none other than Johan. But she's not alone. The boys follow her up so that they can all confront him together. But Johan is pleased to see all of them. All but one. he notices that Angel is missing. They ask if Johan called Angel, and what he said to him. Johan says that he just gave him the last key to unlock the monster, and he's smug about it, which sets them all off. But Sunny is the only one who can hit him where it hurts, when she starts reciting a poem that she once heard him say when he was delirious with a high fever. It leaves him stunned. We've never seen Johan quite like this before. She clearly caught him off guard. After reciting the poem, she asked if that's when he became a monster. Then she says, "You lost. The monster didn't awaken, because Angel is dead. He took his life instead of becoming a monster. You wanted us to become monsters? You wanted to be able to say you weren't the only one. But you were wrong. We won't become monsters. Whether monsters are born or made, you are evil." Johan explains how one failed experiment doesn't mean that his hypothesis is wrong, because the experiment isn't quite over yet. At this point, the police arrive back at the hospital, finally realizing that they were chasing a false lead. Now, they rush up to the rooftop where they know the kids are. However, the students are taking things into their own hands. Moon quickly locks the door to the roof and tells Johan that this is over. The boys pick him up and throw him over the edge of the roof. Johan is clinging onto the edge for dear life as he looks up at their blank, cold faces. And after a moment, he smiles and then lets go, falling to his death. Then we cut to the aftermath, where all the students are being asked, one by one, what happened on the roof. And they all stick to the same story, that on the roof, Johan had threatened them, even holding a scalpel to Sunny's neck. Then he told Kang to lock the door, but when the police showed up, it startled him, long enough for Moon to knock him out of the way. And then he simply just went over the edge. He lost his grip, and he fell. There was no time to do anything or try and help. Then the detective asks, did he have any last words? To which Moon thinks about it for a moment, and then says no. But we see the truth. Just before he falls to his death, he says one thing: I won. After Moon's interview, he goes out into the hallway where the rest of them are waiting for him. And with that, they all walk off together, taking the memories of what really happened on the roof with them. So, did they become monsters in the end? So, that is the end of A White Christmas. What did you think? I really like this show as far as, like, psychopath dramas go. Anyway, do you think the kids became monsters in the end, or not? Were they justified in what they did? I mean, when you put yourself in their shoes, they've been psychologically tortured for days on end. So, and I think after they found out about Angel's death, that really just pushed them over the edge. No pun intended. But, yeah, I kind of hate to say that they're justified, but maybe a little bit, right? This was an interesting one. I like how distinct all the characters are. Like, they all have very distinct personalities and stuff, even though they all seem to have, like, the same haircut. But that's 2011 for you. I hate Jay. He's the worst character in the show. He was the weakest link of the group, he was the most annoying, and the most frustrating the entire time. As far as my favorite, probably Chi. Chi and Ray. Ray was just a vibe, you know, that man was just running on vibes the whole time, and Chi was smarty pants, and the only one actually solving problems. Moon, even though he's like supposed to be the leader, to me, I was like, it's not really giving leader. Like, you went along with Jay's stupid plan of hunting down Kong with, like, no evidence that he did anything. And look, he didn't do anything, did he? Yeah, other than that, the show in terms of, like, the acting and stuff, on point. Very on point. Also, lots of familiar faces. I don't think I have anything else to say. So... yeah. I'll make him lose his cool. Yeah, I'll make him go, ah.